So what does this make you think about men?
I think men are fun and nice, and I don't think they're necessary to live. Chastity has a decent father. I think Sonny's a decent father. I think he...
Your daughter's...
Yes. Elijah's father is absolutely useless and not worthwhile at all.
Greg Allman.
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't called Elijah in 2 years.
Tell me about your father.
You know, my father is dead. He just died, and I don't feel anything about him. I met him when I was 11.
Never knew him before?
No.
He left your mother when you were how old?
My mother left him when I was a year old.
Okay.
And I met him when I was 11, and he was very showy. I mean, he was flashy. And also, everyone in my family, except my great-grandmother who was dead, was blonde. And when I saw this dark man walking into the house, for the first time I thought, okay, so now I understand everything. This is where I came from.
Did he look like you?
Exactly.
I would have thought you would have adored him, Daddy.
I did for 6 months, and then he was such a letdown to me that it crushed everything.
What did he do?
Well, he was a heroin addict at the time, and he almost burned our house down. And he pawned all my mother's jewelry, and there was a part, if I'd known him when he was younger, I think I would have liked him because he and I were a lot alike in good qualities. But he had led the life of in and out of jail and a junkie for so long that it kind of it took over.
Did you ever see him again after you were 11? Did he ever become a part of your life?
He tried to, but you know, usually, like, he'd do one nice thing, and then I remember being in New York and this Armenian rug dealer calling me up and saying, your father gave me a bad check, and he said you'd be responsible for it, and the reason I know he was your father was that he sold me this picture of you and your daughter and him together. And it was the only picture we'd ever taken. And it was Chastity, my father, and me, and he sold it to this guy. And I just thought, you know, I haven't got time for this.
Then how, after this experience with your father, could you ever have married Greg Allman?
Who knows why I married Gregory? I kind of think I married Gregory because I felt so controlled by Sonny. I knew that Gregory couldn't even control himself, much less control me. And I didn't feel threatened by him. And also, he had one of the sweetest personalities of anyone I've ever known.
It's interesting because you marry Sonny when you're a kid, who's like a father.
Yes.
And then you married Greg, who's like a son. Where are you now?
Oh, Joshua is all things at all times. He's like a father, like a brother, like a son, like a grandfather.
Am I going to read by the time that this is on that you're married?
When are you going to do it? No. No.
May 29th. When are you going to do it?
We were talking about it the other night, and I think you shouldn't marry someone until you've at least been with them for a year. So we were thinking like sometime after September the 9th. I'm not sure. I mean,
at 3 p.m. You're just thinking about it, but nevertheless.
But we've talked about it. I'm really nervous about it. Joshua's not nervous, but of course, you know, he's 29 and never been married, and it's, you know, he's got a lot of faith in it. I'm a little bit more nervous about it. You know, I think the only reason I don't want to get married is because failing in front of America is very difficult.
But you never much cared what people thought. At least one didn't think you cared what people thought.
Well, I don't care enough to change what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But, of course, it hurts you. I mean, it's hard to have people think of you as kind of this vacuum cleaner with a belly button, you know, and be out there and be fairly intelligent and pretty perceptive and know that people have this kind of strange idea and still be too stubborn to change.
Yeah. There was a point, I don't know whether I doubt that you still feel it now, where you said everybody thought you were such a tramp that it was as if you slept with the whole...
Right, the Mormon Tabernacle.
Mormon Tabernacle,
right.
Quiet, yeah.
Well, I've been around the block, you know. I haven't been around as much as most of the people that I know, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I like to like someone that I'm with. I've never been one so much for just going out and seeing someone and thinking that they're cute enough to take home.
You once said that you were terrified of growing older. How do you feel when you think 40? I'm going to be
I don't
40.
like it. I hate it. Oh, God, you know, I'm sure Jane Fonda has turning over in her leotard right now, but the idea of being 40 is not, you know, I think, okay, you look good for 40. I think that maybe it's a good time to be older in America because all of the women who are older are really kicking ass. Can that get on television?
I don't know. We'll try. Recently, you said in an interview, I really have known pain. What's the most painful time? And what's the best time?
I think the most painful was right before I left Sonny, and the happiest was right after I left him. For about a year, I don't think my feet ever touched the ground.
Do you like Sonny now? I know you're not friendly with him. Do you feel good about him?
You know...
Or is it just a pain?
No. One part of me is really angry with him.
Why?
Because he did things that he didn't have to do. You know, sometimes when you're holding something and you don't want to let it go and you just smother it, you know. And yet, I think I get a lot of strength and a lot of wisdom from Sonny because Sonny was like my father. So I love Sonny on one hand, and I really am angry with him on the other. Yeah.
Because it's now been quite a few years.
It's 10 years.
Yeah.
It really, when I got away from Sonny, I was the happiest person that you ever wanted to meet. I felt like a slave who was being set free. And not necessarily because he was a terrible master, but a master's a master.
Were you mad about it?
When I met him, was I mad about it? I saw Sonny Bono in a place underneath a radio station. He walked in the door and someone said, "There's Sonny." I turned around to look at him, and I swear to God, and it's never happened to me since, everything went like to star filter around him, and there was only him standing there. And I had never seen anyone. I mean, look, he was ugly. You know, he wasn't, but here was this really, he had this long hair, and he was dressed like I'd never seen anyone dressed before. And he had this thing, you know, he had this thing. Men that I knew just were not like that.
But does it make you feel bad today in any way, then, that you have made it so much and he hasn't?
I think that from the beginning, Sonny knew that he was the one that had to be the straight man through all of it, through everything. And he never was deluded in thinking that he was the great singer or he was the great talent. But without him, I would have never walked on the stage. There would be no Cher without Sonny.
If somebody had never heard of you, and you had to summarize your life,
yeah,
what would that paragraph say?
Oh, I would explain that she was this kind of kid that came from no place, came from the valley, not particularly attractive, not particularly talented in any way that anyone could see. She could sing and dance a little. She was funny. But she had something. And she went on to be successful in everything that she endeavored. Every time I've gone into a field, I've been successful at it. And she was a little flaky.